Hello, everybody. My name is Jordana Thompson, and I am the Senior Program Coordinator for JA of New Mexico. Thank you so much for attending our virtual Career Speaker Series event. This program is open to JA students across the state of New Mexico and highlights business professionals, entrepreneurs, and innovative thinkers from a variety of industries. Each featured speaker will share details about their education, job, and career journey. During our speaker's presentation, if you have any questions at all, please write them down or put them in the chat box, and we will address those during the Q&A portion of the event. Today, I am very excited to welcome Chris Dunkeson, the Vice President of Operations for Comcast. Thank you, Chris, so much for being here today. I will share my screen, and the floor is all yours.
Well, thank you for having me on. I'm excited to partnered with JA in the past on some classes with mid-school kids on money, but this is a new experience for me, so I greatly appreciate the opportunity. Well, let me start just by introducing myself. My name is Chris Dunkeson. I'm the Area Vice President for Comcast. I've been with Comcast a little over 30 years, and I'm responsible for operations in New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, and Idaho. And I've been really fortunate. I've been in Albuquerque most of my life, but through my career, I've been able to travel all over the country and meet a lot of really amazing people and work with some great teams. So let me start, like I said, with who I am. This slide's got pictures of my family, and that the young guy there in the suit is probably the only tie I owned when I graduated from high school. I grew up here in Albuquerque, went to Hoover Middle School and to El Dorado High School. My dad was with the Fish and Wildlife Service, and my mom was a teacher for APS until she retired. And so the pictures there is myself and my wife, Eva. And then in the lower right is a picture I really like. It's a Denver Broncos football game, but those pictures were taken about 10 years apart as my kids grew up at got to go to two different games. So exciting there. And we can move to the next slide. And like I said, I grew up in Albuquerque. I went to Hoover Middle School and then on to El Dorado High School. And I didn't have any idea what I wanted to do, but I figured out early on that if I had a job, I had a lot more options and a lot more freedom. So my first job was actually delivering newspapers for the Albuquerque Journal. And that actually gave me a pretty good perspective on, running your own business. It doesn't sound like much when you look back on it, but I started out delivering about 75 papers a day. And by the end of my time with the Journal, I was delivering 300 every day and far more on Sundays. And I figured out how to make it more efficient. I got my collections down. I was making sure on my routing that whether I wasn't on the same street twice, paying attention so I didn't have complaints and go backs. And that really taught me, the basics of operations. And to some degree, I've kind of been in operations ever since. And like I said, I didn't have any idea what I wanted to do long term, but the value of having a job early and figuring out kind of how things worked helped a lot. So as I got out of high school, I went to UNM and I got a marketing degree. That's actually where I met my wife as well. And I got a marketing degree also because I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I had people telling me, hey, if you can talk to people and you like people, this is a good opportunity. So I went into marketing. I discovered well into it that marketing probably wasn't the right place for me, but I still got the degree and I learned a lot and I met a lot of people while I was there. So as I came out of UNM, my first job, I actually went to work for a paramedic ambulance company in Santa Fe as the business manager. And the operation was really small. It was a startup. We only had, when we first started, we had 2 ambulances. And by the end of my time there, I was there about 2.5 years. By the end of my time there, we had several ambulances. We were running multiple crews. We were working out of Santa Fe, Las Vegas, and Albuquerque. And one of the things that became apparent there was that we needed the ability to staff better 24/7. So I actually went to California and got an emergency medical technician license, or certification rather. And that was an experience as well. While I was in California, I got to see how a big ambulance company operated, got to see some differences and learn some things that we weren't doing as a smaller operator. So I was able to bring those back and work with the team there to implement it. And like I said, we grew the company. I had a great time. It was kind of chaotic working with a startup. A lot of times we had no idea how we were going to make payroll or how we were going to survive the next 2 weeks. But by the end of those 2.5 years, we were a successful business and a team that was operating really well. And it was fun and I learned a lot. And then I left, you can see the picture of Bolin's the thing. if you've driven the highways in New Mexico, you've probably been to a Boland's Travel Center. And I went to work for Boland's. It was a part-time, it was a new role for me. I was learning to do ordering and inventory and work with their warehouse operations. And the job was a good opportunity for me, but I realized pretty quickly it wasn't the right fit. They needed somebody to handle shipping and purchasing, which is really important in any business, but it's not a role that had a lot of opportunity to grow or figure out new processes or even to work with other people a lot of times. So after a few months there, I decided that I needed to look for something else that fit my skill set a little better. And so I had the opportunity to move on, and I did. And, Boland's is still a growing New Mexico company that's running a bunch of, they've got Dairy Queens and truck stops and gas stations across the state. So clearly they survived and have done well without me ever since. Even today when I drive by, I see the stations and I get some sense of pride, but wasn't the right role. So I moved on there, and I had a friend who was working for Jones Intercable at the time and said I should apply. And that's where I really found my home and a career that I loved was the cable business. At that time, the cable industry was still fairly new. We were just launching pay-per-view, and you actually had to call into a call center and talk to a person if you wanted to order a fight or a movie. So the industry was in its infancy, still developing and figuring out what was going to work. We had a lot of things happening. We were building out networks, and it was kind of a startup in its own way, but it was a really big startup. So I started out as a cable television installer in October of 1993. And I've been with Comcast ever since. It was originally Jones Intercable. We were acquired by Comcast. But I'll run through my career journey, but it's been a lot of fun to be part of an industry that was growing and changing every year. And the things we've been able to do and the teams I've been able to work with, I feel really fortunate. So we can move to the next slide there. So I worked as an installer and service technician for probably about a year and a half. I learned the business. I got to see how things operated as a technician in the field working with customers. And then I was offered an opportunity in the warehouse. And this wasn't the same type of warehouse operation that I had with the travel centers. This was a warehouse that had shipments coming in, semi-loads of stuff coming in every day. Technology was changing, so the needs of the business were changing. We actually, at that time, we were just launching computers in business. So we were one of the first companies to start using computers to track inventory and shipments. And it was a whole new process. So we got to design processes and procedures. We got to build a team that understood how to work together and to run millions of dollars worth of inventory and keep it in the right place when our folks needed it to be able to get it out, and to do it pretty efficiently. And so it was fun. While we were building a business, we were also building cable systems across New Mexico. So that was a learning experience. And like I said, the first time I had any exposure to computers in the workplace. And as I came out of the warehouse, I briefly got the chance to work as a construction supervisor and got to see how cable systems were actually built in the field, whether it's on the telephone poles or underground, the crews that you see today working. I got to work with contractors and work through them to get results. And so I learned a lot in that job as well. And just, one of the common themes of my jobs is I got to learn a lot. I feel really fortunate to have been able to work in an industry where I tell people all the time, unless you want to be a nurse, you can do pretty much anything else in the cable industry. And so we were still growing and changing. And at that time, the only internet available was, dial-up modems like you'd see with AOL. And so the cable industry launched internet in 1998 and 1999. And it came to New Mexico in 2000. And in 2000, I applied to be the general manager for the online group. So we were just launching, we were building a business. And at that time, I don't think any of us understood how the internet was going to work and how accepted it would be and what a product said it would be and how important it would be in people's lives. So we were actually going to run the internet as a separate business from cable television, because cable TV was where everything was happening. Internet was kind of a side business. And so we had two completely separate businesses, one for the cable TV side and one for internet. So I got to help set up a brand new operation that very few people understood. And so after spending millions of dollars building out a network, we were selling high-speed internet, the incredible blazing speed of 1.5 megabits per second, which, for the folks on today, that's probably 1/1000th of what the speed you're getting today. It's 1/400th of what you see on your cell phone today. But at the time, that was the fastest we had. We didn't have any idea why we would ever need more. And so even on our sales demonstrations at the time, we were using a product called, or a site called Napster to demonstrate how fast it was. I'm guessing, none of the folks on the call have heard today of Napster, or very few. It was the original music sharing service. And if things went really well and you had a good network connection, you could download a song in about 4 or 5 minutes. At that time, it was blazing fast. And so we had technicians, salespeople, billing system people, we had multiple warehouses, we had engineers. And that business grew beyond anything we could have imagined. What started out as a music sharing service, the reason to get to the music sharing service, ultimately became a product that changed the world. I'm really proud to have been part of that. As the internet became a common household product and moved into regular business, I was able to transition to lead other teams. And today I have operations teams spread across 4 states, and I get to work with some incredibly talented people. If we could move to the next slide here. I'm incredibly proud of the teams that I've been able to work with. And, as I look back at launching a product, I don't think I'm overstating, but it changed the world. When I tell people I work for Comcast, the first thing they usually think of is cable television. And we've become an internet and entertainment company. We've got customers all over the world. I have 185,000 coworkers that are generally pointed the same direction and helping maintain the world's largest network. And why what we do is important became really clear to me when the pandemic hit. Most of the world couldn't be together. We scrambled to adjust our operations to be able to keep putting internet service into people's homes, because that became the connection. It was how people went to school. It was how people went to work. It was how you talked to, your family if they weren't, in the same home. And, if you didn't have internet access, you were at a real disadvantage. And that's still true today. But during the pandemic, it was critical. And our teams worked through that and got to do some amazing work to literally keep the world running. And that was something I couldn't have ever imagined coming in my career. And it also helped us understand why what we did matters. And so if we can go to the next slide here, part of my job has always been to work with city and state government officials to expand internet access to help families who wouldn't otherwise be able to afford it, or who hadn't had it at home, or maybe were operating just off of a cell phone. So I've worked with every mayor and governor in the past 15 years to try and bridge some of that digital divide. I've been really fortunate to be able to work with nonprofits, both through volunteering and funding them. Like Junior Achievement, I mentioned that I've been able to work with middle school kids to talk about how money works. We've talked about how the internet works. I've been fortunate that there's a picture there in the middle where I got to give scholarships to a bunch of high school seniors who are they're just heading off to college. And so I think there's an opportunity where most people have as they get further into their career to be able to give back. And that's been really a rewarding part of my career. I've realized that that's frankly the fun part of the job, because I get to make a difference that's more than just running, a company for a profit and loss statement. Because as we get to where what really matters in a business, we're a huge technology company, but it's about people. And the teams I've been fortunate enough to work with, the people I've seen move all over the globe as part of the efforts of the company and the expansion efforts, and people have moved to other companies and continued to make a difference in the communities they work and live. That's really been the fun part of the job for me. My kids have grown up in the cable industry, and we've been able to work with other families and see the difference that it's had on them. And so I think, as I look back on my career journey, there are 2 things that stand out. One of my favorite sayings, I have no idea who said it first, is on this slide. It's, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. My whole career has been built around teams and people working together because we're better together than we are as individuals. And that to me has just set the tone for my career. And whether that's in how we operate a business or how we operate in our community or how we, help our family and other families be in a better place for the next generation, that's been a big part. And then the final, if I leave the group with something is, I intentionally picked the swerving road on the career journey slide. I didn't have a plan. I've never had a plan. You meet some folks when they're in 7th grade and they say, hey, I want to be a teacher. I want to be a firefighter. I've never met a kid in 7th grade who said, man, I really want to work for a cable company. And that's okay. As long as you have a plan to get to the next step of something. I think being open to new experiences and being open to experiences that you might not have even considered in the past. If I hadn't taken the job with the cable company, I was looking for a job. And when I got the job with the cable company, I went home and told my wife, this will be great. I could do this till I find a real job. And I've been with the company over 30 years now. It's been a really rewarding career. And so I'd say, be willing to help others. We're better as a team, and be open to new experiences. Those would be the 2 pieces of advice I would give if anyone was asking. So, and I appreciate everybody listening. I'm really excited for the work that Junior Achievement does.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris, for sharing your story with us. Oh, I've got a whole page of questions for you, and that's so awesome that you kind of led the team into bringing us internet, which really has changed the world. Like, I'm sure all of the kiddos watching, all of you in your classrooms today, don't really know a world without internet. I know my world without internet is very limited. It was only a couple years while I was little, so it's really, really cool to hear your story and know that you kind of led that charge. I feel like I know a celebrity almost.
I was really fortunate to be part of it. I wish I could take more credit for developing it.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you again for sharing your story. At this time, we are going to move into the Q&A portion of our event. So students, community members on the call, if you have questions for Mr. Chris, go ahead and throw those into the chat box, or we will let you unmute in a little bit if you'd like to ask the question yourself. But I will start us off with a couple of questions. Mr. Chris, can you describe a time for us when you failed at work and how you handled it?
Yeah, I've definitely had my share of failures. And I think as I look back on it, one of them was when I took the job with the travel centers. I had taken a job that it sounded good. It was a little more money. Great people, but it was the wrong job for me. And I knew it pretty quickly. And for me, I think what did go well there was being honest with them. I let them know fairly early on, I don't think this is the right place for me. I'm going to work really hard to do my best while I'm here, but this isn't the right role. And I think that gained credibility because as an employer, they had taken a risk on me as well. And, I didn't want to leave them in a bad spot. But I think as I look back on mistakes, and there've certainly been quite a few, being willing to have conversations, own up early, let your boss know what's going on, ask for help. It kind of goes back to that teamwork thing. Life is better when you're part of a team. And I think handling failures by asking for help, asking for advice, and then don't do it again. That sounds basic, but it's important.
I love that. No, that's such a hard lesson for us to learn as young people and even as adults, that asking for help and admitting when you do need help. So thank you so much for touching on that. We do have a question in the chat that goes perfectly along with this, so we'll jump there. Someone asked, you mentioned that you weren't always sure what you wanted to do in school and in your career. So how did you know that certain jobs weren't for you? How much did a willingness to try new things help you on your career journey?
That's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
I think the jobs I knew weren't for me were just based on my personality. Looking back on it now, I'm a believer that if you can find a job doing what you like, that's hugely important. because what you do and who you work with is in many ways more important than how much money you make. I mean, everybody's got to make enough to feed their family and have the, basic life, but having a job that you enjoy going to and people that you enjoy working with is so important. I think being willing to try new things for me was pivotal. I think, I took a job as a cable installer. I didn't know anything about being a cable installer, but I thought, I'm in pretty good shape. I could do the stuff they're looking at. It doesn't seem super complicated, and I don't know anything about cable. I want to go learn what the cable TV industry is. And, I think had I not made that choice, I'd wind up working somewhere else. But at the time when I started there, we were still just getting out of installing cable boxes that still had the cord that laid across the floor. I mean, a remote control, but it was tied to your TV. Versus the technology we've got today, where you talk to the TV, you talk to your version of Alexa, the internet runs your home. If I hadn't been willing to try that new experience, I would have missed out on a pretty amazing set of options. And like I said, I work with top-notch people that I genuinely like. I look forward to being part of the team that we've got. So I think being willing to try new things is pretty important.
Most definitely. Love that. Another question from the chat and myself. What were you like in middle and high school? Were there any sports or activities that you did that maybe influenced you working for the cable company or your career journey?
Yeah, I think I was a bit of a nerd. I'll admit that. I certainly wasn't going to be the lead for the football team. I did. I played intramural sports. I played basketball. I played football. Played a little bit of baseball. But I was never the kid who was good enough to be at a high school level team, which obviously precludes going on to college level. So for me, I think a lot of it was friend groups, and I enjoyed playing sports and I understood the concept. For me, winning is important, but being part of the team is probably more important in some ways. And so that kind of set me down the path of, okay, I'm not going to be in the NFL. What do I like doing that I'm better at? And so, I part of it was like I said, the nerd stuff. I'm really, and I say nerd as a term of, it's a good thing. I being able to apply math and the skills that I got helped me later in my cable career as we were going into internet and architecture and engineering. I'm not an engineer, but understanding how the network works was a big advantage. So while I can say I certainly wasn't in sports and teamwork helped me later on.
I love that. You've talked a lot about teamwork and the importance of that in what you do and how that's applied to your career journey. And it's not always easy. Working with people is tough, especially in maybe middle and high school for our students doing something simple like a group project. What piece of advice would you give for someone that's maybe struggling with being a team player and working with others?
I think that as I look back, especially in middle school and high school, a lot of times we're nervous to speak up or nervous to take the lead. There's a risk of what if it doesn't work. And I would encourage, especially the young folks of that age, jump in, try and throw out an idea. There's a really good chance that somebody else in the room is thinking of an idea or thinking of the same question, and they will support you. So I would say take the risk. Be willing to put yourself out in that group, even if it's not the best idea. We see in life a lot of times the people who speak up the most, generally get things rolling. Even if they don't end with going with your idea, you got the conversation started, you got the project moving, you help make a difference. Maybe what you do is help somebody else be comfortable speaking up, then there's a way to win there. So I would say take the risk, speak up early.
Love that. Take that risk and speak up. I love that. Awesome. We've got a couple more questions here in the chat. Who was your biggest influence growing up?
I would say it sounds a little bit corny, but my dad. My dad worked with Fish and Wildlife Service for many years, his whole career. And, when I was little, we moved all over the country as he took promotions and got his career underway. But as my brother, I've got a younger brother. So as we got into middle school, my parents both made the choice that, hey, we want to try and stay in Albuquerque. We want the kids to have some level of stability, and we're both going to work really hard. So I would say my dad, he set a great example. He taught me the value of hard work. And he was also the one who, really focused on, kind of reach back and how do you help the next person? How do you make sure that the person behind you in line has the same opportunity and same ability to be able to succeed? So, yeah, he was a big influence.
Yeah, that's really wise advice. I love that. Make sure the person behind you thinking about their needs and that they have the same opportunities. I like that. Wise man. I like that a lot. Oh, another question from the chat and from myself too, just hearing through your story, working with and bringing internet to the world and really changing the world and how we live our lives, and how you mentioned you were kind of the first to work with computers and technology and tracking inventory. What is that like? I guess being on the forefront of innovation, being the first to try something new and go through that change. I know a lot of our students went through that COVID time as you did with your company, and a lot has changed. And it can kind of be scary to think down the road what that might look like. How did you conquer that change in your career journey?
I think scary is a good way to put it. It was a combination, kind of a two sides of a paper, of exciting and scary all at the same time. We started out, and the version of what we think of as a computer today was not what we had then. We had a green screen, and you moved around with a cursor that looked more like a video game. And there was a constant fear of don't delete the database. I think being willing to try new things was a big deal there. And it was also exciting because you could feel like we were on the edge of something bigger. We didn't know what it was. We didn't know where it was headed, but we all knew we wanted to be part of it. And I think it was similar as we come out of COVID. The parts of life that changed for the better have really stuck. I mean, we're having this meeting today. We're not all sitting in one room. And 10 years ago, this wouldn't have been something anyone would have thought of. We would have thought about virtual learning. We would have thought about the changes that could have. If you live, well outside of a city, you can still take an engineering class at UNM if you want to. And so I think it provides a lot of opportunity. And I think that was what we felt like then too, was, hey, something big is happening here. We may not get it right the first time. We may not even understand it, but it's cool that we get to be part of it.
Absolutely. Be part of something life-changing, really and truly. Oh, I love it. I'm getting jazzed just hearing about this. And then one final question to kind of close out our time. Can you please touch one more time on what was that best piece of advice that you have ever received growing up?
Yeah, I think for me, it was that saying was, if you want to go far, go alone, or if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go as a group. And I think that's true in life, at work and outside of work. I'm a firm believer, and that's really stuck with me.
Thank you so very much, Chris. It's been wonderful getting to hear your career journey and learning a little bit more about the internet and how it really has changed our lives for the better. Thank you so much. Students and community members, we hope you enjoyed today's program. Before we log off, just a couple of announcements. This is the last of our Career Speaker Series events for the school year. We have had an amazing group of speakers from a variety of industries this school year, so thank you so much to everyone who is able to join us. We will be back in September of the fall, so keep an eye out on your emails for those registration links. But following this presentation, educators, you will be asked to complete a post-program mindset survey. We would really appreciate your help in evaluating our programs. You'll be able to find that link to the survey at the bottom of the video. But thank you so very much to our community members, to students on the call, to Chris Dunkeson from Comcast. Thank you for being here. We will see you all in the fall for some more Career Speaker Series. Have a great summer. Thank you.